Crimson Desert is a special game. You probably think you have an idea of how much content there is in this world, but whatever you think, you are wrong. For example, you can easily spend 50 hours in the first area alone before you move on to the 4 other regions. We rarely have that feeling of a next-gen game these days, where you put the controller down just to take it all in because you cannot believe what you're seeing. Well, Crimson Desert is that type of game. It's so much fun to get lost in this world that you're willing to put up with its many flaws. I like to compare it to a really good TV show with amazing final episodes, but some mediocre middle parts that you have to sit through. In the case of Crimson Desert, those filler episodes are found in extremely annoying checkpoints, bosses, puzzles, and other systems that could have easily been improved before launch, but will likely be addressed in the weeks and months to come. You will be picking up a ton of loot in Crimson Desert, whether it's stuff for your camp, equipment to improve your character, food to stay alive, many crafting resources, items for the other playable characters that you by the way switch between GTA style. Like there's a ton of crap to fill up your backpack, and no kidding, during the first week of the game, 25% of my time was spent in the inventory menu. So we got the review code 2 weeks before launch, and after 1 week they released an update to address the feedback that we shared in a special Discord they set up for this review process. In this update, they increased the starting inventory from 20 to 50 and gave more ways to earn inventory slots. I've never seen developers address feedback during a review process like this. Now, the inventory management is still far from perfect, but this does show that the developers are very reactive and will probably address many shortcomings during the post-launch. Now, I don't think this should stop you from jumping into this world now, although you will likely have a much better experience if you wait a month or two. Don't expect the best story or very engaging dialogue. The main character in Crimson Desert is its world and setting. It's rare these days that we can experience a brand new IP where you can constantly be surprised because you're not familiar with the rules of the world. This can lead to very awesome moments, like early on when you go after the Reed Devil and have to fight an army of his minions before reaching the enormous rice field where a really cool boss fight takes place. Every boss battle has these super cool fighting sequences before, after, and during the battle. Pearl Abyss is not holding back in terms of cinematics, which often makes it feel like you're part of something epic. Every story arc has its primary topic that mostly gets resolved by the end with its own iconic set pieces and moments. Again, like a good TV show episode, only Crimson Desert is dropping 8 seasons worth of episodes in one go. So yes, don't expect PlayStation Studios level writing, let alone what Rockstar is able to produce, but still, the characters have personality, there are large stakes that make the main missions enjoyable, and it also gives you that Game of Thrones sense of scale with multiple factions fighting for power and having their own troubles and worries, and we as Cliff are a great pawn that can help turn the tide. The main quest is also a great way to progress through the open world, because sure, you can explore the world very early on, but it's not as welcoming as say a Red Dead Redemption 2 or Ghost of Yotei. While it was always said that Crimson Desert is an action-adventure game and not an RPG because you cannot make dialogue choices, for example, I overall simply don't agree, as your character's power is extremely important and the world is designed like an MMORPG. There's no difficulty setting you can select, but every new region has more difficult enemies, as if there's a hidden level requirement for each zone. This means that if you want to go to a new zone before the main story takes you there, so with very underpowered gear, then you will easily be swarmed by enemies and one-shot by bosses. Some big cities or encampments are also occupied by enemies, so not really accessible until you complete the associated mission, meaning that you cannot really engage with a lot of the open world content when you go to an area before you're supposed to. This does not mean that your curiosity will not be rewarded, as there are encampments in these late game zones that can give you quests that you can already complete, although for some of them you do have to fight enemies or bosses that will be way too strong. You can also find some gear already lying around that you can pick up, or reach some shopkeepers a bit earlier than if you would follow the main quest. But it's not always a very pleasant experience compared to some other open world games, so it's overall best if you stay in the zone of your current main quest. But Crimson Desert is still a very good open world experience if you understand its rules. The side content is really good, with lengthy missions that end in very cool boss fights that reward you with unique equipment. There are many factions that need your help to fight rival clans or seek out traders, and you will miss entire villages and special unlocks if you don't take the time to explore the world. It really feels alive in its own way. There's not one, but a couple of huge cities with a ton of NPCs walking around, Crimson Desert just delivers in terms of scale, in the amount of stuff that there is in this world. These people on the street don't really have their own schedule, and some of them will just stand around, although they also improved that already with an update before release. But the fact that you always see a huge wall with castles in the distance, or an enormous tower and other settlements, it's rare that the game keeps that sense of mystery even after 50 hours or more. You simply want to see what the game throws at you next. It also really helps that the combat is an absolute blast. Hitting these enemies, dodging their moves, taking them out, it all feels amazing. The amount of depth in combat and skills combined with the cool items with special effects ensures that you constantly feel a sense of growth. Even after 50 and I would assume 100 hours, you're still learning new ways to take on enemies. Now, a big difference versus other open world games is that you're often fighting an enormous group of enemies, something that will only grow as you get further into the game. There are more enemies in an enemy camp than you need to kill to liberate that camp. It starts with 100%, and by taking enemies out, you want to lower that number to 0. But no kidding, this means that you're fighting dozens of enemies at the same time, and sometimes can easily spend 30 minutes just cutting through bodies. I would have preferred smaller groups that require more tactical play, because now I just found one tactic that worked really well and would just spam that to not get overwhelmed. As the moment you give the enemies enough room to react, it can be over for you. Now luckily the more tactical play can be found during the many boss battles. So an important thing to know is that while you can try, it will be very hard or almost impossible to just mainline the game, as in every act you will face a challenging boss that puts your skill and gear to the test. Unlike Souls games, you can stock up on health items if you farm them, so have many ways to heal yourself during the fight, but that still doesn't make these battles less punishing. It is satisfying to learn boss patterns and which moves work, and to see that all the time you spent upgrading your loadout has a huge impact on your damage and survivability, but still, a lot of the bosses can feel overwhelming and will easily take half an hour or longer to beat. Nothing wrong with that, but again, it is something we don't see often in non-Souls-like open world games, so good to know before jumping in. Some fights are also not well designed, with bosses being way too aggressive, making it hard to react to anything and causing rapid game over screens. Also, the fact that cutscenes between phases can't be skipped, only sped up, makes repeating a hard boss less enjoyable. You can always give up and try the boss again later, but this does mean that you have to travel all the way back to the boss arena, which often sets you back a lot of time, as fast travel points are few and far between. Crimson Desert just often gets in its own way. Sometimes when you fail, you spawn quite far back and have to repeat puzzles you've already completed, easily adding 10 minutes to each attempt, which especially sucks when you die for reasons outside of your control. There are quite a few puzzles in the game, and these are great if you like to wreck your brain, as there are often no hints or tips available. You can encounter some of them in the open world. These are optional and can be skipped, but there are also some puzzles mandatory to continue with the main story. Some are clear and fun to solve, but others are very hard to understand because they involve new mechanics that are not or poorly explained. Again, there was a Discord set up during the review process, so we could share tips with each other, something I've never seen before. And I get why they did it, because otherwise we would have been stranded countless of times during the main story, unable to continue. So totally expect that you will need guides to continue certain parts of Crimson Desert. But as annoying as these things sound, you will want to put up with them to experience this world. Crimson Desert has so much to offer. Pets you can take with you, awesome ways to use your skills within the environment, amazing mounts that you certainly have to find. The game gives a lot back for the time you invest, and again, it does seem that most of the issues will be addressed in the coming months. There are these annoying enemies that would just out of nowhere stun lock you into a very difficult quick time event, and would just simply cause you to die even when you have full health. So you have to respawn and lose another 5 minutes. It's not fun, but they already addressed this in the day 1 patch. So if you don't mind waiting, then I certainly believe Crimson Desert will be a much better experience, again 2 months or so from now. But if you are just as hyped as I was jumping into this game, then it will not stop you from enjoying all the incredible moments that the game has to offer. It's a trade-off that I was willing to make, one that hopefully over time becomes less and less of a problem. If you still have questions, drop them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them in a special Q&A video on the React channel that will go live before the game launches. Congrats to Save Extract for winning my Deluxe Edition giveaway. I already started a new one. So if you still want a chance to win the game, then totally click the special link in the video description. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, check out my previous video, and I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.